The reason I've asked the question is the products you're using might well have been designed by our next speaker. Yeah. Kapil is a Silicon Valley veteran, worked at Apple, and I've always enjoyed his stories of him working behind the black curtain inside office, designing some of the products that we've just talked about and some of the ingredients of that. So we're in for a real treat for the next hour as we hear from Kapil Kane, and Kapil now heads Intel's innovation efforts in China with a huge team working there. I'm proud to have him flying all the way from Shanghai to join us here at the Asia Corporate Innovation Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, Kapil Kane.
Thank you. Cool. Dazhong Chuangye, Wanzhong Chuangshin. Does anyone here know what that means? Dave? Yeah. For the first time, I'm the most knowledgeable about Chinese in an audience. So it feels great. What it means is mass entrepreneurship and innovation. And these were the famous words uttered by Premier Li Keqiang, the Chinese Prime Minister at Summer Davos 2 years ago. And with that, he called upon each and every citizen of China to innovate, to become more entrepreneurial. And the reason for this is a report published by McKinsey. Maybe that's not the reason for it, but the report published by McKinsey said if China had to grow at the rate at which it was supposed to be growing, half of that growth has to come from innovation. And a year later, innovation became a national strategy for China. But you might wonder, what is innovation and why does Chinese Prime Minister believe anybody could innovate? Right? So, innovation is nothing but an idea put into action. And I think all of our speakers today have impressed upon the fact is that it's the action that matters when it comes to innovation. Because ideas, we have enough ideas in a week to last us a lifetime. We are never short of ideas. It's acting on those ideas is what the problem is about. And there is no one better than doing this than the entrepreneurs. Anyone in this audience who is an entrepreneur? Or are you, okay, cool. Maybe one or two, right? Okay, few, three. What sets them apart? Why are they able to take action on their ideas? Because they believe in that idea. They have passion. People believe it's the technology they possess that makes them great entrepreneurs. But it's not that. It's just the drive. It's the belief in the idea. It's the belief that they are going to change the world with what they're doing. And it's that belief that allows them to take action on their idea and innovate and bring something great to life. And if you're like me, and I think looks like most of you guys are like me, not an entrepreneur working in a large corporate, you hesitate. You hesitate to bring your idea forward because you're worried that you will be shut down by your management. You're worried that you will be told off, right? How many of you guys here had an idea in your mind, but you failed to bring it up with your supervisors, right? So I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. You too, in a corporate or a medium-sized company, can bring your ideas to life. And that's because you could be an entrepreneur, right? So Here, how many of you know this term entrepreneur? 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Very few, great. Okay, so I'm going to talk all about entrepreneurship today. An entrepreneur is nothing but an entrepreneur inside of an organization. And an entrepreneur acts just like a startup founder, but he does it from within a large organization. And some of the most iconic products in history have been created by entrepreneurs. For example, Art Fry at 3M, he created Post-it notes by using a policy where 3M allowed 15% time to their employees to work on things they believed mattered. Jeff Raskins, he created Macintosh. He created Macintosh because he used to write product manuals at Apple. So he was there when Apple released Apple I, Apple II, and they were going on to Lisa. And what he noticed that the products were getting more and more complicated. They were getting more and more expandable. And he had a little art background, and he thought this was not the right direction for Apple. The personal computer has to be simple to use. And so he got a few friends together, and he started building Macintosh. And more recently, not recently, maybe 15, 20 years ago in the 90s, Ken Kutaragi, he risked losing his job to bring PlayStation to life. So Kutaragi was a sound engineer at Sony. And what he noticed was that his daughter was playing Nintendo games. And he thought the sound was really, really bad. And he had an idea that he thought if there is a dedicated chip for the sound, the whole gaming experience could be much more better. So he brought this up with his supervisors, and they said, "Are you crazy? We are not into gaming. We don't do that. It's evil. Gaming is not good for society." So what he did was, he struck a deal with his management. He said, "I'm going to consult part-time with Nintendo." So he went and spent his weekends and evenings at Nintendo trying to create this chip. A few months later, Nintendo did not pursue this idea. So he brought all the designs back to Sony and secretly started building a CD-ROM-based gaming station. And then he pitched it to the board once he had a prototype, and the board were furious. They said, "We told you once not to do it. Why you come back again?" And there was one guy, the CEO of Sony at the time, Mr. Oga, he was the only one who supported him, let him continue on with the project, and PlayStation goes on to become the most successful video gaming player ever. Right? So, another question, how many of you guys had heard of Art, Jeff, or Ken before today? Exactly, 2 people. Okay. So, he's like, although entrepreneurs like Jeff, Art, and Ken are as responsible for changing the world as entrepreneurs do, entrepreneurs get all the glory. Nothing wrong, nothing against entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs, people don't even know what entrepreneurship is or who these people are. And for the last 2 years, my mission has been to change that. So, I run a program called Ideas to Reality at Intel in China, where we are creating the next crop of entrepreneurs within Intel. And if you would like to know what we are doing, what is the new, you could scan the QR code. It's WeChat. I'm not sure how many of you guys use WeChat here. Anyone uses WeChat? A few. Okay, if you guys want to do business with China, you need to get on WeChat. Because almost everything is done on WeChat now. Even a company like Intel is forced to communicate with our employees through WeChat. right? So you could take a picture and later on, when you download your apps, you can extract the QR code and keep updated on what's going on in this program. So what is Ideas to Reality? It is an innovation platform where we enable and empower our employees to bring their ideas to life. So, whether you are a research scientist or if you are a receptionist, anybody with an idea can come to our platform and have their ideas heard. Our mission is to create an environment where our employees feel they can do something with their ideas. We want to foster this culture of entrepreneurship within our organization. Our vision is to turn Intel into one of the most innovative companies in China. And mind you, it's not easy. There are guys like Tencent, Xiaomi, Alibaba in China. But our vision, long-term vision, is to get there. And the values, we act like a startup company. This Ideas to Reality program within the big Intel corporate, we act fast. We make quick decisions. And we always work in the greater interest of Intel, not a particular division or a business group. But why? Why did we even think of entrepreneurship in the first place? And it goes back to what our founding father, Bob Noyce, said. He said, innovation is everything. When you're innovating, when we're at the forefront, we already know what the next innovation needs to be. But if we lag, if we fall behind, all we do is play catch-up. We spend all the energy. It's like racing. When the guy passes you, all you see is his behind, and you're just trying to catch up. You have no vision to see what else is on the peripheries, right? And we know what it's like to play catch-up. We completely missed the smartphone revolution. We played catch-up on tablets, and we don't want that to ever happen to us again. So today, Intel is transforming, right? We are transforming from a PC-centric company to a data-centric company. And we view the world through this diagram. What we have here is we have the things, the devices at the bottom. I'm not sure if... No, it's not very visible. We have the things and the devices that create data. It's like our cell phones, the sensors, the smart cars, smart factories. All these things, they generate data, tons and tons of data. And some of them get processed on the devices themselves, but most of it gets sent to the cloud through a connectivity like 5G, 4G, 3G, Wi-Fi. And in the cloud, this data gets analyzed, processed, and the insights are generated that are sent back to the devices that makes the experience possible. For example, take a simple act of ordering Uber, right? You open your apps, you enter the coordinates where you want to go, and you hit request car. Your phone collects the data from your GPS sensor and sends it to the cloud. In the cloud, your coordinates are matched to the drivers who are close by. And the drivers are pinged. The one who picks up your ride is then matched with you. The driver comes, picks you up, takes you to the destination, and the whole experience is possible. Right? So, during the old days when we were thinking of PC, what we were thinking of is how to make the chip faster, how to make the chip smaller, how to make the chip more energy efficient. It's not going to work the same way in the future, because now you might do like one part of your experience in one device, something else happens in the cloud, something else happens on the third device. So you need to think of the whole end-to-end solution. You can't just think of one PC. And so, Intel is looking at how to accelerate three things about data: where and how the data is generated, that's the things and devices; where and how data gets analyzed, that's the cloud; and where and how the data gets transported up and down, that's the connectivity. And in order to do that, we need to understand what are the future of experiences. And so what basically we need to do is we need to be understanding what the customers of the future are going for, right? So we have to innovate even ahead of the partners. And there are three ways a corporates can innovate. First thing is create, right? Which is what usually any company does. It's just business as usual. You have your labs, you have your R&D departments, and you create from within the company. The second is acquire. Right? You acquire a company either for their talent or for their technology. So that's the second way you innovate. And the last is you partner with someone. Maybe Intel and Microsoft partnership has been going on for a long time. So there are three ways you could innovate. So we had a question is, can we create by partnering with our own employees? Because it turns out, right, that your labs, your R&D departments are really good at invention. Invention is creating something that never existed before, and the labs, R&D departments are really good at doing that, but innovation is not invention. Innovation is using something that exists and using it in a new way to create value for the customer or the end user. And the ones who are really good at doing this in your organization are your employees. Because three things, they know the customers, they know the partners, and they know what your company is capable of. And so the question is, what if we could partner with our own employees to innovate? And that led us down the path of entrepreneurship. So how do we go about doing this, right? So entrepreneurs, you cannot create them. You cannot just pick a few guys and say, hey, tomorrow you're going to be an entrepreneur. You can't do that. You need to find them, just like entrepreneurs. It has to come from within. You cannot force someone to go work on some projects because by definition, they need to be married to the idea. They need to really believe in the idea. They need to be passionate. So you need to find these people in your organization. So what we did was we started crowdsourcing ideas from our employees. Just like Neil said this morning, and this crowdsourcing has been around for a few years now. So we said, okay, let's ask our employees if they have ideas. And we started doing this about 3.5 years ago. And we already have 350 ideas come from the employees. And these are not just the ideas. This is something, we have a small questionnaire, what is this idea about? What is the pain point? What is the problem you're trying to solve? How big is this pain point? Who has this pain point? And why is your solution better than something that exists in the market? And how can Intel make money from your idea, right? So it's just not an idea that, like, hey, we should do this better, or it's not we should. It's like what you are, and what is he going to deliver, and what does he need to deliver his idea. So it's not idea, it's his, almost like a business plan. Now, like I said, innovation is not just about having ideas, it's about having ideas and then acting on the ideas. So what we did was we created incubators. And an incubator is something that helps move your idea forward, right? So we give them the seed money they need to actually turn their ideas in their mind or in their PowerPoint into something that is tangible, something you can touch and feel, you can play with. They need space, they need the lab. And mind you, these are all like, ideas with technologies. These are not ideas of businesses. These are ideas of creating cool technologies. We created a network of mentors to help them with the things they needed to move their ideas forward. And finally, and the most important, is we gave them innovation time off. And it's slightly different than what Google does, right? I think Google is famous for this 15% time off, where they give 15% time off to, actually they do 20% time off. So they, like, one day in a week, they allow their employees to do whatever they like. We did it slightly differently. We said, you come to us with an idea, you come to us with a plan, and then we give you the time off. So it's not like the whole workforce is taking a day off. It's only the specific people with the idea, with the vision, with the plan, who gets these benefits. And so, after the incubation, what we ended up with was a bag full of technologies. And I'm going to show you 3 of these technologies as an example. The first one, this is an AI fitness trainer. So what it does is you take a camera and you start doing exercises in front of it by following a coach, a digital coach. And what basically it does is it uses vision processing, machine learning AI to extract your body joints in real time, and it compares it against an ideal person. In this case, this video, you can download it from online. And it tells you whether you are doing it right or wrong. You know, like here it says move slower, he's going too fast, now he's doing his exercise correctly. I'll give you another example. The second example I want to show you is, we call it merged reality pool. So what you have here is you have a projector on the ceiling and a camera. So camera can understand where the balls are, where your cue stick is, and if you hit, where it's going to go. What it also does is like this. It does gamification. It tells you, it gives you some challenges, like, hit the ball here and get your cue there. So we had this demo set up at an innovation, I think, conference or something. And what you do is there's a QR code. You get your WeChat, scan the QR code, and it tells you exactly where to place the balls, and it tells you how to play the games. It's pretty cool, but it needs some AI behind it. It needs machine learning algorithms running to figure out what's going on. The third example I'm going to give you is, these are some pretty cool video effects. Do you guys use like Facebook's video effects or Snapchat? Who uses cool video effects here? No one? All right. Okay. So most of the video effects today in the apps, they are simply templates. What they do is they track your face. They will put some bunny ears on you, maybe some, like a nose ball, and maybe some whiskers, laser shooting out of your eyes. It's very simple, template-based video effects. What this is what they're doing is, there's something called segmentation. So what you do is you upload a short video, okay? And the machine learning can identify object and segment it out of your video and then apply effects on it. So for example, the original video was of this girl just walking across. And the video is now able to put two more girls in that picture. The first to the top row, what you see is something called cinematograph. This is where the whole video stays stationary except for the objects you want to move. And today, to create that effect, it takes 45 minutes using professional tools. And with this AI-based effect, you can do it in 30 seconds. So these are the kinds of technologies our guys are working on. There's nothing to do with the chip, nothing to do with process. So why are we spending all the money on this kind of stuff? It's because this gives us new areas to go into. You know, you need some processing power to run AI, right? So, but nobody, if we don't show people what you could do with more processing power, people may not innovate. So we need to get the rest of the ecosystem to innovate with us. But the problem is this, right? So innovation is not only about creating cool things, it's also making money. So the question is, how do we turn this cool technology that I just showed to you into real businesses, right? And if you look at all the guys who come up with these ideas, 99% of them are engineers. And if you ask them to explain to you how you're going to make money from their ideas, this is what you get. It's a short, I think not a short, maybe a 1.5-minute video. Have a look at it.
Hey, I've got a great idea for a business.
That's exciting. Tell me about it.
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
Huh. That's a little confusing. Can you dumb it down for me?
Sure. What I do is I take a proprietary isomer that I developed with a picric acid wash that hollows out the carbon bonds and replaces them with a nanotube wrapping.
Okay, so I guess it's pretty technical.
Oh yeah. I've been working on this isomer for 9 years.
So what's the business idea?
To sell it.
To who?
Everybody will want one.
What for?
So they can wrap their volatile organic compounds in carbon nanotubes.
I think you might need a target customer. I don't think I need to wrap my compounds in your nanotube.
Well, maybe not you.
So, for people who buy it, what's the value you are providing them?
I've developed a chemical isomer that links to volatile organic compounds causing carbon bonds to rupture and wraps them in a nanotube coating.
You've said that already. This is getting annoying. Why should anyone care about your isomer?
I spent 9 years on this.
I know that. Okay, pretend I'm an investor. How can I make money off your product?
By selling it.
You're a smart guy, but try not to think like a scientist. Think like a business person.
Okay. Value chain. Term sheet.
I have to go now and answer that.
That's not your phone.
I know.
Okay. So this is, I have lived through such moments before when you ask our engineers to explain their business case. If you ask them the value proposition, you hear answers like, I've been working on it for a long time. As if it's supposed to make it useful to people just because you worked on it for a long time, right? So we had this problem that all these cool technologies, we were not able to get our engineers to sell them. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons an idea dies in a large corporate is because the innovator is not able to explain it to the people who are going to invest in those ideas. So we had a huge problem on our hand. Intel is a highly, highly technical company. And how do we convert them from techies into salespeople? I think people, the speakers here today have impressed upon us that you need to be a salesman. You need to sell your idea. And the way to do that was to have a way to talk to your investors, and in our case, is the business unit leaders. So, here's, I think, just a quote from Lee Iacocca, and he said just what I said, is you may have brilliant ideas, but if you can't sell them, it's of no use. And what we did was, we thought that startups have the same problem, right? The guys from the valley or wherever they are, they come up with brilliant technologies and they have to convert them into businesses. They need to pitch their ideas to venture capitalists. So we started looking at unicorns. Where do the unicorns come from? Where did Dropbox come from? Where did Airbnb come from? What is their story? What is Reddit's story? And it turns out they came out of startup accelerators. You guys know startup accelerators? I think one or a few, yeah. So startup accelerator is like a business school for startups. You go there for a few months. What they do is they look at your business case. They help you polish your pitch. They help you find customers. Basically, their goal is in a very short time, it's like a crash course, significantly increase the value of your company so that it becomes very attractive for venture capitalists to invest in. So basically what they do is they turn your technical idea into a business case. And these three startups came from Y Combinator, which is like the very first famous accelerator in the Silicon Valley. Luckily, we had two good accelerators in Shanghai. One is China Accelerator and another one called XNode. So we went and we learned what they do. We started just shadowing the people working there. And then we created our own accelerator within Intel. And it's like we send our innovators on a journey. It's a 16-week journey. They have to climb the Mount Everest, go to the summit with their ideas on the back, and they need to survive the whole journey. We laid a very clear path with milestones. For example, they have to, within 2 weeks, they need to have something called a business model canvas. They need to really understand the value proposition. They have to get the actual real customer engaged. And finally, they have to pitch the idea on the demo day to the business unit heads to get their businesses onto their roadmap, right? And like I said before, it's not easy. None of our guys even knew what a business model canvas was. They didn't even know what business model was. So what we did was we created a program called Entrepreneur Leadership Program. So it's a step-by-step learning process. It's learning on the job. So as they develop their technologies, they also learn about the business. We started using things like design thinking, lean startup methodologies along the way. We got the coaches from the accelerators in because we didn't want someone from within our corporate to teach them all these tools. We wanted to use the tools that are used by the startups. We created a great network of business mentors. We had an amazing network of technology mentors, but we created a network of business mentors, some of them from these startup accelerators, and we created a set of tools that were very easy to use, very quick, not like long processes. And with all this, we end up at the demo day where our innovators present their projects, their ideas, their technologies, and the business plans to all the employees and our leaders. I'm going to show you a short video of what a demo day looks like. So, what are the results, right? So if you are very like an executive or from the business side, you want to see what does all this lead to. It's great. It's like fun working in the startup-like environment, creating cool technologies, demos, blah, blah, blah. But what is the real result, right? So we've been running this accelerator for 2 years now. We have done 4 batches, and in every batch we have 5 to 7 internal startups. And we have launched 3 projects into the market, which are actually making revenues. And we are going to have 1 product launch at CES in Jan, so which is a pretty big deal. Let me see. I think it's quite technical to explain these projects. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to the next slide, right? Do you guys recognize someone in this picture? Yeah, Stu. Do you remember this? Yeah. Okay. So I think the business results are great. You got in you are able to land your products into the market. You're making revenue for the company. But I think the biggest impact of the program is making your workplace a great place to work. And I think the change of culture, the organization, I think is the biggest value we see from having such a program. If we didn't have this, or rather say having this program, you're able to engage your employees in doing things they believe matters to them. And at the same time, you're also getting business results out. And what more, if you walk through our offices in China, we have something called a wall of fame where we put our innovators' pictures on the wall. So for them, it's a great way, it's a great recognition, and they feel really good about innovating, and that's what really motivates them to keep innovating. And once they've gone through a program like this, the next project they work on, they are much better than where they were before. So I think it changes the whole culture of the company. So what I say is don't look at the current projects they worked on. Think of what they're going to do on the next project or the next project. And with this, we also won an award for organization and culture because of what this program is able to do to employees' morale. Now, some of the lessons learned running such a program, right? So if you are thinking of having an internal innovation program, I would like to share just 3 lessons that I learned over the last couple of years. The first thing, is that you need to have a good executive sponsor, the one who gets innovation. No matter what you do, bottoms up. And I think this has been echoed a few times already today, is you need the top management to be involved. Because innovation, by definition, is doing something that's different, something that's new. And, the corporate, especially the middle management, they don't want any change. They're not really rewarded for taking risks. They're rewarded for making a plan and sticking to the plan. And innovation is everything but that. So when you're fighting your daily battles with the rest of the company, you need your boss to cover for you. And without that, it's really, really hard to get anything meaningful out of your program. So make sure that you have a really strong executive sponsor who gets innovation, who gives you a little longer leash when you're starting out. So that gives you the maximum chance of succeeding. Otherwise, people, even let's say a company like Intel, they can give you a little, they have some leeway, but I think you need to be able to to deliver results in a reasonable amount of time. But you need a strong sponsor until you're able to show the value to the rest of the organization. The second lesson is to avoid what we call innovation theater. And this is doing innovation just for the sake of innovation, right? So it's like someone says, hey, we need to innovate. So you get some money, you get ping pong tables like bean bags, those kind of things. They are innovation theaters. Or you run a hackathon without having the means or the knowledge of how to take that idea forward, right? All this is like a PR, and it doesn't work. It may work on that one day. You might get some people to believe that you're innovative, but it doesn't give you anything in the long run. So strongly discouraged from having or spending money on things that are not necessary. Look at what your objectives are. Discuss with the management how you are going to be evaluated at the end of the year or at the end of the 2 years, and try to get to that. Don't try to create something you're not, right? So know why you're doing it and stick to and focus. Because when you're innovating, right, a lot of people will come to you with ideas like, hey, let's do this. Let's work with the university. Let's work with the startups. Let's do that. But you need to do, I think there's nothing wrong in any of that as long as you know what you're doing it for and why you're doing it, right? So that's the second lesson. The third one is that innovation is about people, right? Simon Sinek. Have you guys heard of Simon Sinek? Yeah, he's one of the top 3 mostly watched TED Talk speaker. And what he said was, invest in people, don't invest in ideas, because good ideas can be easily destroyed by bad people, but good people can make a bad idea better. And so when you're innovating, you always need to remember that it's about the people. It's not about that particular project. It's an investment in people. It's an investment in your workforce. And whatever else, the projects, whatever, is just a bonus. But it's very hard to explain this logic to people who wants to look at your return on investment. But I think there is a way to do that. So, what happens if you don't listen to your ideas? What happens if you don't nurture your employees? What happens? That one of the 2 things can happen. The first one is people will leave, right? So they will leave your company and find a job elsewhere. And you might say, big deal. Think of this. Xerox PARC, right? One of the most innovative companies in the Valley a few years ago. And there were 2 guys, John Warnock and Charles Geschke. And they always came up with new ideas, and their ideas were always shut down. So they had enough of it. They left. They started a company. It became Adobe. Today they're making $6 billion a year. Had their ideas been nurtured within Xerox PARC, they would have been making $6 billion a year. So it's not only your people leaving your company, it's also lost opportunities. Now, the second thing that can happen is more drastic. And to explain that, I'm going to tell you a story. It's about selfies. Do you guys take selfies a lot? All right? People even have died trying to take selfies. It's amazing how addicted we are to selfies. And the reason the selfie is possible is because of the digital cameras we have on our phones. When I was growing up, the mid-90s, we did not have digital cameras. What we had were Kodak moments. Does anyone remember a film? Yeah. So today we can take a selfie within 2 seconds. In those days, we had to put a film roll in the camera, take a picture, then go give it for development, and maybe in a week you will see what your pictures look like, and maybe half of them are really bad. But did you guys know that 20 years before that, so in the mid-70s, the digital camera was already invented by none other than an engineer at Kodak by the name Steven Sesson. So when Steven, he brought this idea up to the board, they laughed at him. They said, "What is this?" By the way, that's the actual digital camera that he created. It was like this big, right? And it could only make 0.1 megapixel pictures. So the board said, "What you have here is a digital toy. We are in the business of chemical and paper." So they just sat on it. And fast forward to 2012, okay? Kodak is bankrupt. They're disrupted by this very invention they created, right? And this came to be known as the new Kodak moment. So, the first result of not listening to our employees is employees leaving, starting new companies. And this one is, if you don't listen to your employees, your whole company might not exist, right? And this won't be the last Kodak moment. A study by University of Washington, they predict that 40% of all Fortune 500 companies will be dead in 10 years. Not just drop from the list, they'll be gone. And I don't believe this is like a wild exaggeration. Today, the corporates don't only compete with the other corporates, they also compete with the startups, right? And I think Dave, he said, it's not the one who is the biggest or the fittest will survive, but the ones who are most adaptable. And the startups are really good at adapting to the market changes. Corporates take a long time to respond to the market. So, if a corporate has to compete with the startup, they have to be as nimble as the startup. So, to counter the entrepreneurs outside, the corporates have to have a healthy number of entrepreneurs inside. And that's why I believe that entrepreneurship is going to be the future of work. The question is, if your company realizes that before they're out of business or not. So, to all the employees in the audience, I would say, you don't have to quit your job in order to change the world. You can do it from right within. And for those in the places of power, I would say give entrepreneurship a chance. Thank you.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Kapil, thank you very, very, very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Bit of a shock to see myself in my beautiful orange trousers on screen. But thank you for that memory. Great. Okay, as usual, Q&A time. So looking forward to all those questions that you've got to fire towards Kapil this afternoon. And while you're doing that, you just put up the stat there from the University of Washington, which was the 40% stat, that 40% of Fortune 500s would die. Now, recently the futurist Rohit Talha, he came out with something which actually tallies with that. He said that by 2025, 50% of the Fortune 500 will be made up of companies not yet born. So do the mathematics, think about that. 50% of the Fortune 500 by 2025 will be made up of companies that have not been born yet. Which means somewhere in the next 8 years are going to be 250 unicorns, full-blown unicorns created. Is that scary or is that exciting? 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 Exciting. Great.
Yeah.
We've got the right crowd here. Good.
But it's funny, but I think 90% of the people here, they work in a large corporate.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, probably.
So why do you guys think it's exciting?
So your question is, stand up if you're working for a large corporation here. Something which is medium-sized or larger than medium-sized. Medium to extremely large corporation. If you're working for one, please stand up. Mic check, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. If you work for a medium-sized corporation or large corporation or multinational corporation, please stand up.
Huh?
Everybody working for a small corporation, really?
Wait.
Okay. That's
I think it
interesting.
doesn't matter as long as it's a small corporate.
Yeah? Okay, cool. So, question time. So keep firing in your questions and we'll just see what we've already got in here for Mr. Kane. Okay. Interesting. Good. The leading question so far appears to be, what kind of ideas qualify to be presented in your Ideas to Reality platform? Anything and everything, or only technical, or services, or something not Intel related?
Any idea that helps us move into our strategic direction areas, which are artificial intelligence, autonomous driving, 5G connectivity, and AR and VR. So these 4 areas, anything that will help us capture a market share in those areas are the ones that qualify. They don't have to be technical, they could be services, but what we have seen so far is most of them are technical. And some of them are also how to scale our solutions to more customers. For example, there is this new technology, not new technology, Thunderbolt 3 is the current standard of a USB kind of a port. But the problem with that is if you have to design one in your product, you need to have pretty good design capabilities as an ODM. So one guy came up with a add-in card. So what you do is you don't need to have any design experience in creating Thunderbolt 3. You just leave a little slot, which is pretty standard, and you just simply slide in this card. So it makes your product Thunderbolt 3 compliant. So such kind of ideas also come in through this. The idea about this, the video app I showed, is a service idea. But it goes along the lines of AI. So it's not a typical idea of, let's say, make your chip faster or the process better. So we do have all kinds of ideas, service, software, middleware, but as long as they fall in the category of where Intel wants to grow. If someone comes up with a new idea for a shoe that has some funky material, we would not fund that idea. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think it has. Here's the thing, you need to see, can you help the idea grow with the resources you have within the company? Right? So there's no point for us funding an idea which is in, let's say, finance sector, unless it is to use our resource to make something better. So I think it has to, something that we are able to help it grow. Yeah.
Which leads possibly to the question, could Intel ever become a consumer brand, direct-to-consumer brand, rather than just being inside other people's products?
I think never say never. As a person, I would love to do it because I like to go directly to the consumer. But I think Intel is one that lays the foundation, a technology foundation for others to create things, right? So that would go against that business model, which has been working for us for a long time, right? So we are a B2B company. I think if we have to do what you are suggesting, we have to completely rethink everything we are doing. And I'm not sure if it's doing service to the consumers or not. Yeah, maybe you need a different kind of company to directly sell to the consumer, right? You need different kind of talent. You need a different kind of mentality. Yeah, I mean, I would never say never, but I don't think at this point is in the right maybe interest of Intel to do that.
Okay, so we'll just keep looking for the Intel Insight sticker in the meantime.
Yeah.
But stay tuned. All right. Okay, lots of interest around this question. What tools will you recommend to employees to be able to generate good ideas and to be able to execute them?
Okay. I think the best ideas come when you're working on something. When you're working on something and you realize that what you are working on can be applied somewhere else. And a lot of ideas come from that. Another place is when you work with a customer and you see a pain point that they are facing. So I think the best ideas come when you're actually out there doing things. There are a lot of times when you do this thing called idea harvesting. It's basically forcing people to come up with ideas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in my experience, the best ideas that have come from people doing real things. For example, I'll give you an idea. A guy, he was working on writing a code that makes data encryption and decryption really fast. Do you guys understand what I mean? Okay, cool. And what he realized and this data encryption and decryption happens when you send a packet over the internet. So it makes the process of sending data over the internet faster and safer. And what he realized that the same code, if he did a few tweaks, can be used to compress large amounts of data locally, right? And this kind of data is something that is created during genome sequencing. So, because he was working on this, he came up with this idea he came up with a program that could be applied to genome sequencing, and that became a product in itself. So I believe most of the good ideas come when people actually do things. If you try to force coming up with the ideas, it really, you don't get very high quality ideas. Yeah. And again, in the end, it's not about the idea, it's about execution. And when you come with something that you already done, it's easier to execute on top of that.
Yeah, I think a few speakers today have made the exact same point. Get close to your customers, watch them look for the pain points, and then ideate around the pain points to solve a customer's problem. And I think in the new economy, if you're not solving a customer's problem, you're not in business.
Yeah, and I think you that seminar you did was on customer-centric innovation, and we take it very seriously now. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, how do you test market's response to new ideas? So you've generated a new idea. How do you know it's got legs, it's got viability, feasibility?
Okay. So one of the things we do is we get our innovators to go out of the office, talk to the customer. Our very first step is looking at the business model canvas. So are you guys familiar with business model canvas? Okay, some of them. Okay, so basically, what it does is there are 7 or 8 boxes which tells you what is your what is your value proposition, what are your revenue streams, who are your customers, how you're going to get to the customer. So it puts the whole idea on one piece of paper, right? So once we have that, the next thing we do is, what are your basic assumptions with your idea? And once you have figured that out, you go and test those assumptions on a real customer. And our goal is that within the 4 months, we have this acceleration for 4 months, you get a real customer who is willing to pay for what you have created. That's the real test. That's the lean startup methodology. Is you create something, you show it to your customers, get feedback from them, change your solution based on the feedback from the customer, iterate. So we follow that lean startup methodology. So customer is really the key. And what the problem we had was our people were not really willing to go out of our office. They said, we are engineers. I will ask the salespeople to talk to the customer. We said, no. You have to talk to the customer. And recently what we did was to force this. We got our employees out of our offices and we put them in a startup accelerator where most of the startup folks are, right? So they can quickly go and test it on a new customer. And why we put them in the startup is because startups are much more willing to try new things, give feedback than a large corporate. So validating the idea is at the core of what we do. We don't. The old way of doing things is you look at some analysis from McKinsey or someone and you say, oh, there's a gap there, let's create something, and then you spend like months doing it and you release it and no one wants it, right? So we talk to the customer even before the solution is created. Yeah.
I know DBS had a very similar thing, DBS Bank, and Neil spoke about that this morning. Exactly the same thing. Kicking the executives out of their comfortable top floor offices and say, go down on the street, meet the people, speak to our customers, because you get a rude shock. And I think everyone says, a business plan never survives meeting the market. Or as Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get a smack in the mouth.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. That's the reality. A lot of times, an engineer would keep working on the solution, even though he's not sure whether this is what customer wants, but he keeps going. So it's best that the customer tells the guy that no, this is not what we are looking for, but we would be really interested in this thing. And so we created that a way for our innovators to easily go talk to the customers, test new things on them. Yeah.
Terrific. Neil also spoke this morning about, with his Ideas Vault program that they've got, incentivizing people for crowdsourcing ideas, and some of the rewards were like iPads, etc., etc. What incentives do you offer at Intel for people that come forward with ideas?
Okay. It's few things. It's the recognition that they really care about. And the way we recognize them is we actually, if someone comes to this Ideas to Reality program, they are like celebrities. You would see their posters on the walls. We would tell their stories through our official Intel's WeChat channel. And it's great because a lot of times when you have this story very public, you can share it with your friends, you can share it with your family. And it's a great honor for them to be recognized as an innovator. Yeah. Okay. Other thing that happens is it helps them in their career ladder. So if you have worked on this Ideas to Reality project, when the time comes for promotion, these guys get extra points. What we have realized is that money is not a big motivator for people. Because in the past, we have tried to help our employees go out and start their own companies from the ideas that were generated from the program. But both the times we tried, people got cold feet. just before leaving. There's just not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Some people like the steady paycheck, and this allows them to have that steady paycheck, but at the same time create things that they're passionate about. So it's like a win-win for them. And so far, no one has come and said, hey, I created that. I need like some stocks or anything. They don't really ask for it. And maybe it might change in the future, but we are pretty just a 2-year-old program. So we are also in like our infancy stage. So I think once the program grows, we might put in more ways to compensate people. But I think at this time, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Yeah.
That tallies very well with the research I've seen, where money actually detracts from people's innovation abilities, because once you're offering money, the stakes go up, they then go into a play safe kind of a mode because there's something at risk, etc.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of research showing money is not a motivator or incentivizer for people to innovate.
Yeah, there was a TED talk on this about when they actually monetize, gave people money, people were not taking as much risk, they're playing it safe. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a stack of research. I forget the sources though. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget that.
Good. Keep your questions coming in. We've got 2 minutes and 51 seconds remaining of question time, and I'm determined to squeeze all we can out of this great man before we let him go. So keep your questions firing in. Here we go. How can you push through all those who have FUDD fear, which is fear, uncertainty, doubt, and death? What's the other D stand for? I think it's only one D. But anyway, Okay, so how can you push through all those who have FUDD fear, uncertainty, doubt, and decide to block your ideas and internal ventures? So I guess how do you win over the naysayers, I guess, is the question there.
I think this question has been asked to every speaker today. I think the audience really wants to create an innovation program in their respective companies. I think you can start small. Okay, you can start small. Try to get small successes. Try to celebrate small wins. Don't try to. I think some people say aim for the stars. You can do that as well as you need to also have some projects where it's not like a very disruptive innovation. You get small wins. So every time when we select a batch of projects to accelerate, we try to pick some projects that we can get quick wins. Because without that, you will not be able to sell your program to the executives, right? And then you can say to the naysayers, like, see what we did, look what we did here. So I think that's one way to get around the naysayers. Other thing to do is instead of going and asking to someone for money, you just ask for advice. Then they feel like they are part of it. And they will try to help you make that idea successful. So when we select a batch of projects, right? We have the judges who are general managers, VPs, and they have a small judging sheet. So, there's like, how was the presentation? Is this idea worth funding, blah, blah, blah. And there's one question there. Can you help the idea grow? If yes, how? So that's the last question, and that's the only question where they can write. And a lot of times, they will write something in the box. Usually, the executives like to give advice, and then we go back to them saying, "Hey, see what you said here, and we need you to help take this idea further."
Great. We're going to take one very last quick question. Quick question, quick answer, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How do you keep the creative freshness going over all the years? Keep the sparks alive for creativity and for innovation.
I think we try to challenge our people with new things. We try to give them new challenges. We don't do everything the same way. So even as a program, we are learning. What we did last year, we realize now that we could have done it differently, we could have done it better. So we are always on the lookout for how can we make it a little better in every area that we are doing. Even communication. So every time I see something new, I tell my team, take a look at this, can we do this? Right? So you challenge everyone. Sometimes my team hates it, but in the long run, they realize that it's the right thing to do for the program. Because if you keep doing the same thing, you fall into a pattern, and it becomes like everything else, right? So what you want to do is you need to mix things up. You need to keep challenging your assumptions. Always be on the lookout for what's happening around. What's the latest? What are other people doing? How can you incorporate that into what you are doing? Because there's nothing as a perfect, right? There's nothing. So you always need to try to always look for, whenever I see something, I always have this question, how can I incorporate that into what we are doing? And then you pass it on to others. I think, and that's what keeps people interested, keeps people creative. And sometimes what you can do is, I think one of the great thing about having an internal program like this is you quickly figure out who are your innovators. And then you create a network, and then you can quickly seed them with some new idea. And then multiple people will jump on that and create something. So I think one of the good things about having an entrepreneurship program is finding those right people, because maybe there are only 5% of people in your company who are that. And once you figure out who those people are, then you just keep motivating them and injecting them with new ideas and giving them new challenges.
Fantastic. Kapil, Kane, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
Really fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
you, sir.
Yeah.
Really great. Terrific session. We do have a token of appreciation for you as well.
Yeah.
And here's our chairman, Indra, to make the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you. Cool, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, what an honor, what a privilege. That completes the lineup of speakers that we've had for today. And my bandwidth is completely fully occupied. I've been taking notes all day. I've learned so much today. And I hope you have too, right? Yeah, everyone nodding. Absolutely. Another person that's been taking a lot of notes today is Indra as our chairman. And I'd like him to now come forward and share his thoughts and reflection on today's program with you in his closing remarks. Thank you, Indra.